The night did not begin with a plan. It began with rain. Emma Carter stood near the window of her apartment, watching water slide down the glass like quiet tears. The city outside was awake, but her room felt still, as if time had slowed just for her. She held her phone, then set it down without unlocking it. Tonight was not about calling someone. It was about finally facing herself. Emma was known for being steady. At work, she solved problems without panic. With friends, she listened more than she spoke. People trusted her because she never acted on impulse. But what no one saw was how much she carried inside. For years, she had trained herself to stay calm while her heart stayed restless. Her thoughts kept circling back to Daniel Wright. Daniel had been part of her life for so long that it was hard to remember a time before him. They met in college in Seattle, two strangers paired for a group project. What started as shared notes turned into shared coffee breaks, then long walks and longer talks. They laughed easily together. Silence never felt awkward between them. After college, life moved fast. Jobs changed. Cities shifted. Emma moved to Portland. Daniel stayed closer to Seattle. Still, they stayed close. Calls became routine. Messages filled the gaps between days. When something good happened, he was the first person she wanted to tell. When something hurt, his voice made it feel smaller. Emma told herself this was normal. Best friends did this. Best friends mattered. But somewhere along the way, the truth changed shape. She noticed it in small moments. The way her chest tightened when Daniel talked about leaving town. The way her mood lifted when his name lit up her phone. The quiet jealousy she felt, even when she had no right to feel it. These feelings were not sudden. They grew slowly, carefully, like something that did not want to be noticed. Emma never planned to fall in love. It happened in the background of ordinary days. She tried to ignore it. She dated other people. She focused on work. She reminded herself that Daniel had never crossed a line, never made a promise, never asked for more. He trusted her as a friend. She could not betray that trust with words she was not sure he wanted to hear. So she stayed silent. Silence worked for a while. It kept things safe. Predictable. Until it didn't. That night, standing alone in her apartment, Emma felt the weight of all the unsaid things pressed down on her. Her chest felt tight, not with panic, but with exhaustion. Holding back the truth had started to hurt more than the fear of losing him. She walked to her table and opened her laptop. The screen glowed white, empty, waiting. Emma stared at it, unsure where to begin. Then she typed a title without thinking, as if her hands already knew the truth her mind had avoided. My confession I was never meant to tell, but here it is for everyone. The words looked too honest to take back. Emma paused. This was dangerous. Once written, feelings become real. They ask to be seen. Her fingers hovered over the keys. She thought of Daniel's laugh. His patience. The way he always showed up when it mattered. She thought of how tired she was of pretending nothing had changed. She took a breath and began to type. Not to confess to him. Not to ask for love. But to finally tell the truth, at least once, somewhere, before it disappeared inside her forever. Emma did not stop once she started writing. The words moved faster than she expected, as if they had been waiting for years. She wrote with honesty, not drama. She did not want to impress anyone. She only wanted the truth to breathe. She wrote about how love can grow quietly. How it does not always arrive with bold moments or clear signs. Sometimes it hides inside daily routines and familiar voices. Sometimes it waits until it is too big to ignore. Daniel's name appeared on the screen more than once. She wrote about the nights they talked until her phone battery died. About the way he listened without trying to fix her. About the road trip they took through Oregon, driving with no plan, laughing at nothing, feeling free in a way adulthood rarely allowed. She wrote about sitting beside him at a small diner, watching his hands move as he spoke, and realizing she was paying attention in a way she never had before. Emma explained how she never meant to cross any line. Daniel was her safe place. Losing him felt unthinkable. So she convinced herself that feelings could be controlled, that time would weaken them. She told herself love could be trained to stay quiet. It didn't work. She wrote about moments that hurt without warning. Hearing his voice talk about someone new. Reading his message and sensing distance that might not even be real. Smiling through conversations while her chest felt heavy. None of it was his fault. He had done nothing wrong. That was what made it harder. Emma made it clear in her writing that this was not a demand. She was not asking him to choose her. She was not trying to change his life. She respected him too much for that. This confession was not a door she expected him to walk through. It was a mirror. She wrote about fear. Fear of ruining something rare. Fear of being seen differently. Fear of discovering that her feelings existed only on her side. But she also wrote about another fear, the fear of never being honest, of letting silence decide her story for her. As the night moved on, the rain softened outside. The room felt warmer, quieter. Emma noticed her hands were no longer shaking. Writing had taken something heavy from her chest. She felt lighter, even as the words grew more serious. She ended the confession carefully. She wrote that some feelings do not ask to be returned. They only ask to be acknowledged. She wrote that loving someone does not always mean holding them. Sometimes it means letting them go without resentment. She wrote that if this truth ever reached the person it was about, she hoped it would not feel like pressure, but like respect. When she finished, Emma leaned back and closed her eyes. The document sat open on the screen, filled with words she never thought she would say out loud. For a moment, she considered deleting it. Erasing everything would be easy. No one would ever know. But she didn't. Instead, she saved the file and closed the laptop. The confession was no longer trapped inside her. It existed somewhere outside her thoughts, and that alone felt like a kind of freedom. Emma lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She did not imagine happy endings or worst-case endings. She simply let herself rest. For the first time in a long while, she felt honest. She did not know that by morning, everything would change. She did not know that the truth, once written, has a way of finding the person it was meant for, whether it was invited or not. Emma rushed through her workday with a strange weight in her chest. She kept checking her phone, then telling herself to stop. The confession was still saved on her laptop, safe and unseen. At least, that was what she believed. She had not planned for Daniel to come by that afternoon. He arrived earlier than expected, carrying the book she had lent him weeks ago. He let himself in, the same way he always did. The apartment was quiet. Emma was not home. He called her name once, then again. No answer. As he turned to leave, his eyes caught the glow of the laptop screen on the table. The title pulled him in before he could stop himself. Daniel hesitated. He respected Emma's privacy. But something about the words felt heavy, almost personal. Against his usual nature, he sat down and read. At first, he didn't understand. Then her voice became clear in every sentence. The memories. The moments. The care. His chest tightened as he read his own actions through her eyes. He saw how close they had always been, how easily he had leaned on her without noticing the cost. By the time he reached the end, Daniel felt shaken. He closed the laptop slowly, his hands unsteady. Emma had never asked him for anything. That somehow made the confession harder to carry. When Emma returned home, she felt it immediately. The air was different. Daniel was sitting on the couch, quiet, his posture tense. You read it, she said, not as a question. Daniel nodded. I didn't mean to, he replied. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Emma's heart raced, but she stayed calm. There was no anger in her voice, only honesty. I never planned for you to see it, she said. I just needed to write it. Daniel stood and paced the room. Was it all true? He asked. Yes, Emma answered. Every word. Silence stretched between them. Not the easy silence they shared for years, but something fragile and uncertain. Daniel admitted he felt confused. He had sensed their bond was deeper than normal, but he had never named it. Reading her words forced him to see what he had avoided. I never wanted to hurt you, he said quietly. I know, Emma replied. That's why I never said anything. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. He realized how much she had carried alone. How often she had shown up for him without asking for more. I need time, he said finally. Not to run from this. Just to understand it. Emma nodded. She had expected nothing less. Take all the time you need, she said. I don't regret telling the truth. Daniel picked up his jacket. At the door, he turned back. Thank you for trusting me with this, he said. When he left, the apartment felt empty, but not broken. Emma sat down slowly, her emotions finally catching up with her. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She simply felt exposed. For the first time, the space between them was no longer filled with unspoken feelings. It was filled with questions. And questions, Emma knew, always lead somewhere, either forward or apart. The days after Daniel read Emma's confession felt heavy and fragile. Every message, every call, carried a weight neither of them could ignore. Emma tried to focus on work, on her small routines, but her mind kept returning to him. She replayed their last conversation, his words, his pauses. Every detail mattered now. Daniel didn't avoid her, but he didn't rush to explain either. He called one evening, voice calm but thoughtful. Can we meet? He asked. Emma agreed without hesitation. She didn't know what to expect, closure, clarity, or a new beginning, but she needed to see him. They chose a quiet cafe, the one where they had once spent hours talking about dreams, fears, and future plans they weren't ready to chase. Sitting across from each other, they exchanged polite smiles at first, but the tension was real. Emma noticed how Daniel fidgeted with his coffee cup, how he avoided her eyes at first. She understood. The words she had written had changed something between them, whether he admitted it or not. Finally, Daniel spoke. I've thought about what you wrote, he said. About us, and what I've been feeling for years. His voice was steady, but there was a vulnerability there she had never heard before. I've been afraid. Afraid to admit I felt more than friendship. Afraid of losing what we already have. Emma's heart pounded. She didn't interrupt. She let him speak. Reading your confession, he continued, made me face something I've been hiding even from myself. I care for you, Emma. I have for a long time. But I didn't know how to say it without risking everything. She felt a mixture of relief and nervousness. Relief because he admitted the truth she had long suspected. Nervousness because now, the future was uncertain. They were standing at the edge of something neither had crossed before. I'm not asking for promises, Daniel added quickly, seeing her hesitation. I'm not saying we have to change everything overnight. I want to be honest. That's all I can offer right now. Emma nodded, emotions spilling quietly. That's all I wanted, she said softly. Honesty. Nothing more. I didn't write it to make you feel pressure or guilt. I just needed to tell the truth. They spent the next hour talking slowly, carefully, as if every word could break or build what they shared. They didn't make plans for the future. They didn't define what this meant. They simply acknowledged it, an unspoken agreement to explore what was there, gently, with respect. For Emma, it was a kind of peace. She had carried the confession like a secret weight for years. Now it existed outside of her, shared and recognized. And for the first time, she felt seen, not just as a friend, but as someone worthy of love in its own right. Daniel walked her to her car as the sun dipped low. Neither spoke much. Their silence was comfortable, but charged. When he finally said, "Thank you for trusting me," Emma smiled, a quiet warmth filling her chest. As she drove home, Emma realized that truth changes everything, but not always immediately. Sometimes it shifts the world in small, quiet ways, creating space for honesty, understanding, and connection. She didn't know what would come next, love, heartbreak, or something in between, but she knew she had done the bravest thing possible. She had spoken her truth. And in that truth, there was freedom. Some confessions are never meant for applause. Some are meant for one listener, one heart that can hold them gently. Emma's confession had found its way. And whether it led to romance or deeper friendship, it had already changed her life. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. She could breathe. She could hope. And she could finally step forward, no longer bound by silence. Because truth, once spoken, can never be taken back, and sometimes, that is exactly what love needs.